What's up, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of The Lawyer You Know. And another day has passed, albeit a half day, in the Karen Reed trial. The defense continues to move their case forward. We hear they might be done next week, earlier than you think. And we're going to hear from Karen Reed outside of court today to tell us what the plan is for the defense. But first, we're going to hear from Lucky Laughlin, the tow plow driver, and from Miss Kolokithas, who was at the waterfall that night. And the defense is being very specific about what they're trying to point out and build along this case when it comes to reasonable doubt. And Hank Brennan takes some very interesting shots at Lucky Laughlin that could change the trajectory of this case, depending on what Judge Cannoni is or is not going to allow to come in. And I have a lot of thoughts on that. So make sure you guys hit the like button. Let's get into it. So Lucky Laughlin is the, I believe, sixth witness for the defense. We've heard from him before. We heard from him last case. Most people know who he is at this point. When I talked to Mark Betterow a couple weeks ago, we discussed whether or not we'd call Lucky Laughlin and how he could provide some good details for the defense, but that we know from last trial there are some inconsistencies in his testimony. Lally was able to bring them out, I think, in a pretty decent fashion last trial. And we know from the juror interviews after trial that they did not find Lucky Laughlin overly credible. And they didn't necessarily take his testimony as something that was going to be foundational in them seeing reasonable doubt in this case. So that's in the back of my mind as I watch Lucky Laughlin, as the defense did decide to call him, and he was the majority of the day today. One of the reasons I was thinking maybe they didn't need to call him is because the defense already got out with Yuri Buchanan on cross-examination that the tow plow driver told him he didn't see a body in the lawn. I think he said between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m. So that evidence was already on the record. The defense could have already made those arguments, but the defense wanted to hammer it home. I thought Lucky Laughlin's testimony trial one was okay. I thought it was okay. I feel like he got flustered. I feel like Lally was able to push him around a little bit and get him to admit some issues. And the jury really found, hitting the basketball hoop and not reporting it and things like that to be pretty big issues with Lucky Laughlin. And we just saw Hank Brennan kind of push around a little bit some of the credibility issues with other witnesses, even Officer Barros, who I thought was an incredibly credible witness and a law enforcement officer with no skin in the game. And frankly, if he wanted to fall in line with all the other cops, nobody would be surprised, but he didn't. But Brennan got him to admit multiple times, memory issues, maybe memory's not perfect. Yes, I messed up something that I said in the last trial, even though it was nitpicky and not specifically really as big as Brennan wanted to make it to be. I was looking forward to see what Brennan could do with the potential credibility issues with Lucky Laughlin. So, okay, somebody said surname is pronounced Laughlin. Okay, sorry. Listen. There's a lot of names. I'm going to do my best. I don't mean any offense if I mispronounce them. It's going to happen. So just be prepared for that. And if that really offends you, I apologize, but you can probably expect it to happen. So Lucky ends up testifying that he's got a lot of connections in Canton, born and raised here, brother's a town selectman, Chris Albert's town selectman. He's friends with the Alberts, knows them all. Chris Albert, he used to work for him, delivering pizzas. He drove the Franken truck that night with all the different parts on this truck. He explains how great the lighting is in the truck, how much he can see. It's like a spotlight. You can see where you're going. He wears contacts and glasses. Today's wearing contacts. No issues as far as his visual perception with contacts and with the light. So now let's see how he describes where he drove the plow that night near 34 Fairview, which he knew where that was because he delivered pizzas there. It's where the Alberts live basically as long as he can remember. And he knows that is the Albert residence.
And then head back up towards Fairview.
Okay, so you're passing Fairview on your left?
Yes.
Plowing further and then turning around and plowing back?
Yes.
And when you came back to the intersection of Cedar Crest and Fairview, what did you do?
I take a right.
And how familiar were you with 34 Fairview Road on that day?
Very, very familiar.
having delivered pizzas there for years?
And then having grown up in that neighborhood.
Were you friendly with the Alberts growing up?
Mostly with Chris, but I was cordial with the boys.
All right. And when you entered Fairview Road from Cedar Crest for the first time on your route, would 34 Fairview be on your right or your left?
On my right.
And can you give the jury your best estimate of when or what time was it when you first encountered 34 Fairview Road on January 29th of 2022?
About 2:40, 2:45
That would be AM?
a.m.
And when you were passing,
Time is obviously important, right? Because the timeline we know, 12:31, 12:32, from that point on, there should be a 6'1", 200+ pound man laying in a rather small yard. Now, the snow was coming down. Would he have seen him under the snow? Things like that. Those are questions that can come up. But at 2:30, 2:45, the plow is coming through with Lucky Laughlin driving, and that's where the questions are going to be centered. And this is what the jury has to really zone in on and key in on. Do they believe his testimony here? Frankly, as far as like, does he have any bias or does he have anything in the game here, skin in the game on direct? You're thinking he's a Canton guy, grew up in Canton, worked for the Alberts, connection to the Alberts potentially. So does that make him seem more credible to the defense to you?
34 Fairview Road or encountering it at that point, what did you know about who lived there?
I knew the Alberts lived there, and I knew that Brian Albert was a police officer, first responders.
Now, aside from the lighting on your truck, were you aware of whether there were any street lights in the area of 34 Fairview?
Yes.
Could you describe those?
Sure. There's one before you get to 34 Fairview driveway, and there's one after Fairview's driveway.
Do you have a memory as to whether or not those street lights were working on January 29th of 2022?
I do not have a memory of that.
But in any case, how much of the lighting of your Franken truck was illuminated at that time?
All my lights were working.
So you're now driving up Fairview Road, and 34 Fairview's on your right. Taking into account the lighting conditions that existed, especially on your truck, how much of the front lawn of 34 Fairview could you see?
I could see all the way to the front door.
What obstructions were there at the time when you first passed the Alberts residence?
None.
Were you familiar with the area of the flag?
He could see all the way to the front door. There was nothing obstructing his view driving past the Albert house. It's lining up for a pretty clear, easy testimony here.
Pole on the left side of the property.
Yes.
Now, when you are plowing, sir, where is your attention focused?
My attention's focused out the front window, to the right and to the left.
Why?
I am looking for pedestrians. I'm looking for residents that may be backing out, not aware that I'm there, and God forbid, animals.
How much of the time that you're plowing are you scanning the road?
All the time.
Now, as you're passing 34 Fairview, could you see the area of the flagpole at 2:45 in the morning, sir?
Yes.
What was on the ground on the Alberts lawn?
So he could see it. No doubt about it. No, I'm not sure. No pausing. He could see it. Frank said, finally caught you live. Big fan of the recaps. Thank you. Love that you calls balls and strikes. In my opinion, back-to-back great days for the defense. A stark contrast in D witness versus the Commonwealth witnesses in terms of demeanor, likability. Besides Dever, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And another reason why we're going to talk more about Dever in other videos coming up later this week or this weekend, but you remove her, and I just think, and I know a lot of people thought she was great for the defense, so maybe everybody thinks it's just like a perfect run for the defense, but every demeanor of every witness the defense has called outside of Dever has been normal, like a human being, kind, the same on direct, the same on cross. Here, just testify about what they saw, what they did, what their job was in this case. So I agree with you as far as that demeanor for sure.
On at that point in the area of the flagpole?
Nothing.
Did you see a 6'1", 216-pound man lying on that lawn?
No.
Now, after plowing Fairview with the Alberts residence to your right, what do you do?
I go to the very end, take a left on the Chapman Street, back down Chapman Street, and then take a left back onto Fairview.
And are you plowing the whole time?
Yes.
So you get to, in this diagram, Exhibit 49, we don't have to turn the lights off. I think we can see it. You're traveling in a down direction, correct?
Correct.
and you would hit Chapman Street. Is that fair to say that's at the bottom?
Correct.
You do some type of three-point turn and go back down Fairview?
Yes.
How long does it take you to get from 34 Fairview the first time to get to Chapman Street?
Maybe 5-10 minutes.
And then how long does it take you to get from Chapman Street back down so that you're now passing 34 Fairview again?
Again, about 5-10 minutes.
And when you're coming back down, what side of the road is 34 Fairview?
On my left.
When you pass 34 Fairview at that time, are there any obstructions preventing you from seeing the front lawn?
None.
Was there any difference in the lighting on your truck when you were coming back down?
No.
Where is your attention focused when you're passing 34 Fairview on your left?
Again, out the front, right and left.
And how much of that front lawn are you able to see on 34 Fairview when you're coming back down from Chapman?
I can see everything. I can see right up to the front door.
What did you see on the front lawn of 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022 when you're making the second pass by 34 Fairview in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
All right. Now, you've made an up and down pass, sir, correct?
Yes.
Once you pass 34 Fairview for that first up and down pass, where do you go?
I then go do Spring Lane, and I do that top and bottom.
And is there a point in time when you come back to the area of Fairview Road?
Yes.
That second time now that you're coming back, I'm counting the up and down pass as the first time.
Okay.
You with me?
Yep.
That second time now that you're coming back, about how long is it after the first time?
About 45 minutes.
So now it's about what time that you're coming for the second time to this area?
3:30.
And when you come back to the area of Fairview,
So now 2:30, 2:45, 3:30, he's going in front of Fairview. Michael says it's impossible that he specifically remembers scanning every inch of 34 Fairview. Did he scan every single house he passed while looking forward while driving? And so here's the question. If somebody drives by the scene of a crime or of anything and they say they didn't see anything, parsing that as a juror, as would they really remember? If they're telling you they remember, so do you think he's lying? Do you think he's forcing it? Do you think Brennan brought up some good points on Cross as to why maybe he might be forcing a memory that doesn't actually exist? Because we're going to find out some timelines about what he said when he said it. So what is the explanation then? Would you expect to see it? Now, I do think this testimony gets much, much stronger when you hear that every other person that walked out of that house after 12:30 did not see a body in the lawn. To me, this on top of all that other testimony is huge. We didn't get all that other testimony today or this trial. We got some of it, not all of it. How important are the video guys for each side? Incredibly important. Incredibly important. They keep the trial running smoothly. They're the ones that are putting the things up on the screen and trying to make sure the jury can see and understand what's going on. Karen, trial 2, FBI referred to as other law enforcement agency. Do you think ARCA will be able to refer to them as such instead of a third party? Surely that should be consistent throughout the trial. I hope the judge lets them say that other law enforcement agency is who hired you. I don't think she is. I think she's going to try to pacify it and neuter it even more to say some other agency, but not make it seem like the same agency that's questioning these witnesses. Because if she lets them be like that, if she lets them connect it to that other agency that's questioning these witnesses, it's pretty clear that's the FBI at this point, I think. Sienna said, I thought Lucky was very composed, did a good job blocking a lot of Brennan's attempts to trip him up on Cross. Do you agree? We'll hold that, and I will let you know when we watch the Cross. Rebecca said, I fought on X earlier. I literally cannot stand how people treat you on there, Peter. It's the wild, wild west on there. It's crazy. Just ignore them. Ignore them. Literally ignore them. They're not even worth responding to. Now, people bring up good points, want to have discussions. I love it. But it's so obvious when people just want to fight about something or, say I'm not even a real lawyer or whatever. And that stuff is just literally not even worth responding to. But thank you for fighting the good fight, Rebecca. And thank you for gifting 20 memberships.
You rode this second time. Are you on the Cedar Crest side, which is on the top of Exhibit 49, or the Chapman side, which is on the bottom of Exhibit 49?
I'm on the Cedar Crest side.
And when you approach it from the Cedar Crest side, are you approaching from the same direction that you did for the first time up and down pass, or a different direction?
Same direction.
All right, so you're now coming down Cedar Crest again, correct?
Correct.
Fairview's on your left.
Yes.
Did you take that left, or did you do something else?
I did not take the left. At that point, I could have taken the left. I can make a decision depending on how much snow there was on the ground I ended up going all the way to the end as if the first time.
All right. And you did your same turnaround in the cul-de-sac?
Correct.
And now you're approaching the intersection of Cedar Crest and Fairview again, correct?
Yes.
What do?
I take the right onto Fairview.
How was the weather at 3:30 in the morning when you're now in that area of Fairview and Cedar Crest?
It's snowing fairly hard now.
Do you recall how much snow was on the ground at that point?
Maybe 2-3 inches.
And at about 3:30 in the morning, how far could you see in front of you, again, straight and diagonally in front of you,
As far as my eyes would let me see.
as a result of the lighting on your truck?
Correct.
Now, you take the right onto Fairview. Describe to the jury what you see in the road at that point.
As I make my right onto Fairview, I notice that there's a vehicle on the right-hand side roughly in the area of the flagpole in front of the...
So if you think that he really wouldn't have looked at the yard, this has to be a complete lie. I find that hard to believe. Like now, exactly like the defense is trying to get us to do with some cops. Like, really, are we going to believe this conspiracy, this cover-up, the shattering of the taillight, the planting of evidence? Are we really going to believe that? Because that's what we have to believe for some of the defense's theories. And while they are doing a very compelling job here, even with less push this trial than last trial, I feel like, to prove that even more. But with the Commonwealth side, you have to believe this guy is diabolical. He is lying about not only seeing nothing in the yard, which could just be a mistake, right? He didn't really look. He was looking at 32 Fairview, not 34 Fairview. But now to say, I saw nothing in the yard and I didn't see a Ford Edge, and then I did see a Ford Edge, and I'm positive it was a Ford Edge. At that point, he's just got to be completely lying. If you're the Commonwealth, you got to say this guy's just a complete liar. It's not a misremembering. This is a lie. How will Hank Brennan get that across on cross-examination? Because he is sure that he saw a Ford Edge and nobody in the yard.
34 Fairview.
Okay. And did you make note of what type of vehicle that was?
Yes.
What type of vehicle was that?
A Ford Edge.
What direction was that vehicle parked when you saw it?
It was parked nose going up Fairview.
Toward Chapman?
Yes.
So you're coming up from behind it?
Correct.
Do you see the rear of that vehicle?
Yes.
And was it parked adjacent to the Albert property, or was it across the street from the Albert property?
Adjacent to the Albert family.
And how close to the area of the flagpole was that Ford Edge parked at 3:30 in the morning?
I can't give you an exact measurement, but looking at the front door, it was about 3 feet to the left of the front door in the area of the flagpole. So in between the front door and the flagpole.
Now, what caused you to remember that there was a Ford Edge parked at 3:30 outside the Albert's residence that night?
For as long as I can remember, they have never parked a vehicle in front of their house. They've always had enough ample parking in the driveway.
What policies or protocols?
That's another thing that just seems like either a just bold-faced, blatant lie or something you would remember, because when you go to some people's houses, they're always parked on the street, right? Other people are never parked on the street. I had an HOA where you weren't allowed to park on the street. Hated it. It was so annoying, but we never parked on the street. So that is something I think that's possible that you would remember.
The DPW are in force when vehicles are parked on the street or the road during a snow emergency.
There is no parking allowed. We are supposed to notify our supervisor when there is a vehicle in the way. At that point, the supervisor will make attempt to call the resident or have the police show up at the resident. And then if they can't get the car removed, the car gets towed.
Sir,
So then he even remembers he saw the car, didn't turn in the Alberts, did him a solid. So that's why it sticks in his mind. That's what he's saying here. Do you believe him?
did you follow protocol that night?
I did not.
Why not?
Knowing the Albert family, knowing that there was a first responder, I gave them respect and opted not to follow procedures.
How did the presence of that Ford Edge parked?
Knowing he was a first responder, that does feel like a little slide in by the defense that Hank's going to highlight later. He's like, you keep calling him a first responder. Is there a reason you do that? Will somebody tell you to call him a first responder?
On the side of the road affect your direction of travel?
I had to go around the vehicle.
How did you maneuver around it?
I had to maneuver to the left, go up, and then maneuver back right into my lane, and then continue up Fairview.
And at any point when you were maneuvering to the left and then angling back to the right, could you see part of the front lawn of the Alberts?
Yes.
Were you able to see any part of the area around the flagpole?
Yes, as I maneuvered back right.
And when you maneuvered back right and saw that area, what, if anything, did you see on the ground in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
All right. So now you've passed 34 Fairview again. Where do you go?
I go back to the top of Chapman, and again, I do a left and a right and head back down Fairview.
Another 3-point turn.
Correct.
So now you're doing your second up and down, correct?
Correct.
All right. So you then enter Fairview again, coming back down from Chapman. And how long does it take you to get back down to the area of 34 Fairview?
Again, about 5-10 minutes.
Now, you are now approaching 34 Fairview, and it's on your right or your left this time.
Again, it's on my left.
What, if anything, did you see in the road at that point?
Again, I saw the Ford Edge in the road.
Now it's on your left side?
Yes.
Did it appear to be in the identical position as when you came up the street toward Chapman?
Yes.
How much of the area of the flagpole were you able to see this time as you're coming back down from Chapman?
I was able, it was obstructed, so I wasn't able to see as much as the first time, but I was still able to see the flagpole.
What did you see on the ground in the area of the flagpole at now 3:35, 3:40 in the morning?
I saw nothing.
All right, so now you've done your second up and down pass, correct?
Correct.
Where do you go?
I go back out on the Cedar Crest and I continue to do the rest of my route.
Now, at this point in time, did you do more of your route or spend more time away than you did between the first and second time?
I did more of my route staying away from Fairview.
And about how long did it take you before you came back to the area of Fairview Road?
About 3 hours.
So what is your best estimate of this third time that you're now approaching Fairview Road?
About 6:15
And that'd be AM
a.m.
on January 29th?
Yes.
Now, this time when you approached Fairview Road, did you come from the Cedar Crest side or the Chapman side?
I came from Chapman Street side.
And when you turned, did you turn left or right from Chapman Street to get down to Fairview?
I turned right.
And once you turned right, did something unusual happen?
Yes, I noticed there were blue lights behind me, forcing me to pull over to the side of the road.
Did you recognize the vehicles that had, or vehicle? I didn't ask you if there was more than one, but did you recognize what type of vehicle or vehicles there were?
Yes, they were police vehicles.
Which vehicle was traveling more quickly, the police vehicle or Franken truck?
The police vehicles.
What were you doing with your snowplow after the police passed you?
I continued down Fairview.
Coming down Fairview, did you actually lose sight of the police cruiser that had passed you?
I did.
How many side streets are there when you're coming down Fairview from Chapman Street?
3.
What are they?
Wyndham, Old Ridge Hill, and then Carriage Lane.
Now, you're now coming down Fairview Road. What?
So we'll stop it there. You get the point. How many times he drove by, what times he drove by. Police were there blocking it. The first time anyone ever approached him in this case was 2 weeks later, and it was a defense investigator. Nobody from law enforcement reached out to him. Then in 2023, he spoke to a non-Canton officer, aka the feds. And then after he talked to the feds, finally somebody from the state police spoke to Lucky Laughlin. Brendan gets up on cross-examination. He says, "You've given a lot of statements. We've never spoken, but you've given a lot of statements. It's fair to say your memory has changed, hasn't it?" And Lucky Laughlin says, "No, it has not." And that was the first pushback where I was like, okay, he is going to battle here and say, either that was not right, or that's not what I said, or I remember what I remember, I saw what I saw, that he was actually going to battle Brennan throughout this cross-examination. I thought there were some questions about that. Oh, there was a question I already read about that from Sienna. I thought Lucky Laughlin throughout this entire cross-examination was calm and not combative, but did not let Hank Brennan say, "You lied, you changed your testimony, therefore you must not be telling the truth." He battled with the nuance and stuck to his story and said, whatever the other ones said, they said, but this is what happened. This is what I remember. And I thought he did a very, very good job at pushing back to it. I think I want to listen to the cross before I really get into what I think about it, but I'll hold on some of that. Okay. So then Brennan starts out with that. And I thought he was going to go right into the multiple different times and different statements, which is what Lally did, and how he didn't report the hitting the basketball hoop and things like that, which, make you say, maybe Is he telling the truth? Is he changing it? Does he misremember? What did he actually see? But that's not where Brennan goes. Instead, Brennan goes to a completely collateral issue, which is usually inappropriate on cross-examination. Usually you're not allowed to bring collateral things into this trial, come on some secondary issue and hammer somebody. But one of the exceptions that allows you to do that is when you can attack a person's credibility or their veracity. And that is what allowed Brennan to do this. So let's listen to him do it. And I have a major issue with how this was brought out in trial for a number of different reasons. So let's take a listen here to a chunk of the cross.
After that night?
Yes.
Was that the first time that you spoke to somebody about what you had seen or not seen?
Yes.
That is the first time?
Yes.
Inevitably, over time, you have given statements to at least 4 different people, correct?
Correct.
And you've testified in court under oath?
Correct.
During the pendency from that night until today, it's fair to say there are many times where you have been intimidated, isn't it?
No.
You've been threatened.
Nope.
You were aware, sir, that you were being threatened by an online blogger to expose you?
I was not.
Yes.
So first off, he's handling these questions beautifully, but we now have threats of an online blogger to expose a witness. Okay. So here's my big issue, and we're going to get way more detailed than that. But my big issue now is we don't want to confuse the jury. And that doesn't just mean be confusing. It also means bring up issues that have no relevance to proving this crime. And if you want to hit his credibility, you could say you were threatened by people on the outside pressuring you to change your testimony or come testify or not to testify or whatever you want to say. You can say there was outside pressure, people were pressuring you. But to say an online blogger, to say he was threatening to expose you is now, how is the jury not like, I want to figure out what happened. I need to go look this up. What is he talking about? How is it not making the jury think, well, that news commercial that I saw or on the news station, that report I walked by and saw, were they talking about that blogger? Is that what they were talking about? And now it's making them think about all this outside noise outside the courtroom, almost tempting them even more to go do some research on this case. You don't want that. I think this is such an easy analogy to the FBI situation. Everybody's telling me they should be able to say FBI, say FBI, say FBI. And I think the door has been opened. But regardless, I understand why the judge wants to keep it out, because once you say the FBI was involved and they hired ARCA and whatever, now the jury's thinking about all sorts of things. And they're putting more credence or less credence on certain arguments. And that's why, to be more vague, you can still get part of the point across, but you can, again, neuter it a little bit. And to me, the same should have been done here to Hank Brennan. He should have been able to talk about outside pressure or threats. He should not have been able to get into it was a specific blogger and what the specific threats were and when they came out and show specific. I don't know if he entered them into evidence. We'll watch again here, but he definitely showed them to Lucky and put them up on the screen, at least some of the posts. And that is a completely collateral issue. I understand being able to go after credibility. He should absolutely be able to try to attack Lucky Laughlin's credibility, but I think the judge gave him way too much leeway and allowed him to go way too far down the road into this blogger issue. I don't know if they've already fought about this, had a sidebar about it, objected. I don't know if the defense plans to do something with this later. I don't know. But this was a complete sideshow in the middle of trial about a blogger allegedly making threats to Lucky Laughlin. And Lucky didn't even agree with half of them. He didn't say he knew about him. He didn't say he felt threatened. So if he doesn't have that knowledge, how does that affect his credibility? In order for him to have been threatened, you have to know about your threat, right? Like, here's a perfect example. This is not actually a threat. I'm using this as a joke, and I know Larry wouldn't care. Marina said, Peter, Larry Foreman was mentioning you yesterday in his post about Dever and talking smack. I appreciate your takes. I'm sure he's talked smack before, right? But guess what? I didn't even know about it. So it cannot affect me if I don't know about it. So you can't be affected by a threat you don't know about. And then she still let him go into it. Still let him put him up there. Still let him talk about these threats. So I thought it was inappropriate for a number of reasons. I think it's always fair game to attack the credibility of a witness. And I think that Brennan should always be able to attack the credibility of a witness. But there was too many details about this. And it was inappropriate, in my opinion.
Saying you sit here today, you have no awareness in the history of this case that you were being threatened by an online blogger.
I was not threatened by an online blogger.
Was the online blogger threatening or saying that he would expose you and tell personal things about you if you weren't helpful?
He was not threatening.
Let's remove the word threatening. Was the person communicating and making clear to you that if you didn't testify in a certain way, there would be some consequence to you? Anytime from when you first spoke to the private investigator until today, were there communications made to you by an online blogger that there would be consequence to you if you didn't testify in a way that was acceptable to them?
No,
You listened, of course, didn't you, to podcasts that were about you?
I did not.
People told you about them.
Yes, they did.
When friends told you
So there you go. Friends told him now about podcasts about him. And by the way, I use Larry as an example because I have no beef with him. He's not going to care what I have to say. I don't care if he's talking smack on Twitter about Dever Take. Lots of people were, right? Including lots of lawyers. Lots of lawyers I've talked to. Lots of lawyers I have no problem with. Lawyers I will continue to talk to. I enjoy that type of a discussion. I still wouldn't have called her, right? I stand by that. And a lot of people think she was great, and that's fine. And you know, we'll see what the jury thought. Sealand said, has it been 100% proven that Karen pulled forward and reversed her Lexus in front of 34 Fairview, or is that up for interpretation like so much else? I mean, 100% proven is hard. The state has set up that timeline, but they did introduce some that Trooper Paul didn't necessarily see the same. We'll see what comes out with ARCA. Peter, I missed yesterday's recap as I was getting married in downtown Tampa. Best feeling ever. Happy to be back here today talking Karen Reed. Well, congratulations. And you are now the third person to tell me. I don't know if you're technically on your honeymoon yet, but if you got married yesterday, you're the third person to tell me you're watching recaps on your honeymoon, which I just think is as mind-blowing as anything else that's happened in this YouTube world. Curious as to why the praise he has received can come in and the harassment of others can't. So the judge has kept some of the witness harassment out with like the McCabe's and Alberts and people like that. She let it in here because this is a defense witness to attack his credibility. I believe that's why she did it. That's how she's differentiating versus it as the Commonwealth witness. But I don't know. I did not hear the arguments or see any motions filed about this coming in, but here it is.
you about them, you knew who that person was that was making those claims, correct?
Correct.
You were well aware the person had a very strong and large social media presence.
I didn't know how large or what his presence were, but yes, I knew he had a blog.
Well, you know now because you follow that blogger now, don't you?
I do follow him, yes.
You pay.
So that was interesting. He's like, well, you follow him now, don't you? And he's like, yeah, I do follow him. You know how large his presence, I mean, we're getting into some specifics that so think back, okay? This is impossible. I'm going to ask you guys to do something that's impossible. Pretend you didn't watch any of, I love all the congratulations on the marriage. Yes, congratulations. Many, many happy years together. But imagine you didn't follow this case. Imagine you didn't know anything about trial one. Imagine you're sitting on this jury and all of a sudden this conversation comes out about this blogger with influence and a big channel. If you're the jury, you've got to be curious, right? You have to be curious. You have to go look it up. Blogger threatening Lucky Laughlin. Like, we try not to do this stuff in trial as lawyers. We try not to do anything that's going to go make them look it up. And even in my cases, if it's not a high profile case or celebrity case, I try to be careful about things I don't want them to go Google or do their own research or testing on. The way you ask it and the way you discuss it in court, you know that has an effect on what the jury does. And so usually we as the lawyers and the judges work together to try and not do that. And that's exactly what Hank Brennan did here. Does he think they're going to go look up the media in this case and they're going to be like, oh, she must be guilty from the media? Does he want the jury? Here's another thing. He really makes it seem like the public pressure is all in favor of Karen Reed. That's the vibe I'm getting from these questions. How is that good for the Commonwealth? If they're like, everybody on the outside thinks she's innocent, is that why you're here? Is that why you're saying that? It's like, how does that help you? What he's trying to say and what he's trying to set up with this is bloggers, the defense attorneys, the public, the defense, they're trying to buy and sell and force every witness to say exactly what they want them to say. They're getting Dr. Russell from LA who wants to be involved. They're paying her to say what they want her to say. Dever, they're calling her and threatening her with perjury. Barros, they're trying to force him to say what they want him to say. That's why they're calling him, talking to him, adding to his statements from the last trial. And now Lucky Laughlin, they're having a blogger threaten him, pressure him into saying what they want him to say. And also, unless he's telling Dr. Russell to do this and highlighting this, he's dropping those breadcrumbs because that's going to be a theory of theirs in closing. This defense team is telling everybody and threatening everybody and forcing them to say what they want them to say. Is it working is the question.
Pay for a subscription?
I do not.
Did you get one for free?
I did not.
And in following that blogger, you know full well the power that person has to get attention from the community to harass, correct?
Yes.
Also, like if I'm Hank Brennan, I mean, he's very confident, but I don't want the jury to be worried about that. I don't want the jury to say I'm going to get harassed if I have a guilty verdict, and that might push them more to vote not guilty. You don't want that. Nobody should want the jury to vote based on that. We want them to vote based on the evidence or lack thereof. But now is a jury feeling pressure to vote not guilty? Should they have the same fear that Brennan is trying to say Lucky Laughlin has? I don't know how that's good.
And so during the pendency of this case, not only were you aware that you were being pressured to testify a certain way, you also knew there'd be consequences if you didn't. Isn't that true?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
The premise of that question is not accurate.
So he can answer it.
By the way, if you notice, Judge Cannoni maybe either not allowing certain sidebars or letting Brennan go too far with some of the stuff that he's saying. Some of the attorneys have started doing speaking objections. I pointed it out, I think, yesterday or the day before. And Yannetti's like, the premise of that is not correct. So the jury knows Brennan's trying to push into a zone that he should not push into. The judge is allowing it. So he wants the jury to know, and lawyers will use their speaking objections in this way sometimes, not so much in this case because she hasn't allowed it, but he's going to push. And I agree with it. I'm sorry. I agree. I'm not ever a proponent for violating judicial orders or court orders, but when things go off the rails, lawyers have to fight for their clients.
You knew there was pressure for you to testify a certain way in this case, didn't you?
I did not know I was being required to testify a certain way. I was also at the time dealing with the loss of my wife. I was not paying any attention to any social media.
Sorry for your loss, but you are aware during the pendency of this case that there has been pressure on you to testify in a certain way. Isn't that fair to say?
No.
Sir?
I mean, this dude is standing his ground, and I appreciate it. And Brennan can use words like, there's pressure on you. That's subjective, sir. You can say, here's a blog post that somebody wrote about you. Fine. I didn't feel pressure. And he stood his ground like I didn't think he would. We've already seen him testify. I would have said last trial was a C, maybe a C+. He came, he testified, he said what he needed to say. Some of it was very good for Karen. I thought the cross was good enough from Lally. To me, this testimony is getting up B+, A- range. Now, there are obvious issues that we're going to talk about that Brennan is eventually going to get to, but this fell flat to me. But maybe there are some other people being like, that's why he came, that's why he lied, pressure from the blogger. Tell me if that's what you think, if that's how it came off. But I felt like even if you thought there was pressure from the blogger, Lucky was like, no, I didn't feel that pressure. Yeah, I knew there were podcasts about me. Yeah, now I follow the blogger. I didn't feel the pressure.
You received a call from that blogger, didn't you?
I did.
And during that call,
Received the call from that blogger. Hank Brennan's questions are kind of hard to hear because he's away from the mic. So I'll try to make sure you get the context.
did you know the person was recording you?
I did not.
You later learned that the person recorded you.
I did not.
Do you know that your conversations were spread throughout the community online?
I was.
Sir, some of those communications or inquiries were claims that you would be exposed for personal matters if you didn't testify a certain way, weren't they?
No.
Inevitably, you've met this person, haven't you?
I've seen him. I haven't met him.
Have you ever spent time with him?
No, I have
Are
not.
you still a follower of that blog?
I am.
When you follow the blog, do you read anything or do you watch it?
No, I don't do much anything towards the blogger.
As you follow it, you can see there are oftentimes articles about you.
No.
Haven't you ever been encouraged to do the right thing?
No.
Haven't you ever been celebrated after you've testified in a way favorable for one?
Yeah.
The do the right thing comment that was just up there. It's like, yeah, we've heard that before. Brennan trying to
Yes.
normalize it.
And so when you were being celebrated, that certainly took off any pressure that would be consequence, didn't it?
Ask it differently.
When you were celebrated for testifying a certain way, did you find that to be encouraging?
I'm going to allow it.
I did find it to be encouraging, but I did not want it. I don't think I deserved it. All I was doing was my job and telling the truth.
Did you enjoy the?
That's an A+. If I was going to coach a witness, that is how I would coach them to answer the question. Right? You can't do that as a lawyer. You can't. If you coach a witness and the other lawyer asks the right questions on cross, it gets blown up. So you really shouldn't coach a witness. But when we talk about it, and if we practice something and we do some cross and that's how they answer, I love it. That's a perfect answer. It's like, yeah, okay, it was nice. I didn't ask for it and I don't care about it. I was doing my job and I'm telling the truth. That's all you can say. Now, people might not believe him, and it is what it is. But to me, that's as good of an answer as you can give.
Attention that you got.
I did not.
Did you pose in photographs with people who support one side or the other?
I did.
And when you were in those photographs, are you saying that you didn't enjoy the attention that you were receiving?
I did not. Again, I was trying to be polite and trying to avoid any confrontation that may come from something if I said no.
Well, did anybody from the district attorney's office ever suggest they would confront you or punish you if you didn't testify a certain way?
No.
How many friends contacted you about what was being said before you testified, the pressure? How many people told you about that?
I couldn't tell you.
He threw in the pressure. I would object to that form. That is not a proper question. How many friends and people told you about the podcast before in the pressure before you testified? It's like, no. Remove the and the pressure. How many friends told you? Fine, that's a proper question. Did you feel pressure? He's already asked and answered. But he's mixing these questions together.
All my friends were telling me.
So you were hearing, how many people told you about that?
I couldn't tell you. All my friends were telling me. So
you were hearing a lot of noise or information from your friend group and community about what was being said about you?
Yes.
And this was before you testified at the first trial, sir?
This was before.
Sir, you work hard, don't you?
I do.
You work many different jobs.
I do.
You try to be a good citizen.
I do.
You are not looking for attention.
I am not.
It was brought to you.
It was brought to me.
You wish you never had that attention, don't you?
Yes.
Because you just want to live your life the way you want to live it rather than have people you don't know attacking, criticizing, or intimidating you.
I'll allow that.
Could you repeat that, please?
Would it be fair to say that you simply want to live your life the way you've been living it without outside people attacking or pressuring or threatening you?
Yes.
Ugo Monk, I guess they could be baiting him to try and get him out. I don't think that's what's happening, but I guess. Not just a blogger threatening a witness, but a blogger that has been in court regularly. Brendan's talking about Turtle Boy, isn't he? So I don't want to assume, but if I had to guess, and if you were forcing me to guess, yes, my guess would be Turtle Boy is who he's talking about. Michael said, if there's a snow-covered object on the ground and you are in a high truck and it's snowing and not directly looking there, you probably don't see him. I think that this is a valid take, and jurors might just think, Lucky Laughlin didn't see him. He was there and he didn't see him. What do you do at the Ford Edge? Now, I think there's also going to be jurors that say he wasn't there. And I also think that if you were to add everybody walking by not seeing him, that's an issue. All right, there are some questions about Kolokitas. I'm going to wait, but I'm going to try to hit some questions here that deal with Laughlin. Worried Sergeant and Lucky will have repercussions. What do you think? Thanks for the discussions on the merchandise, the discount, sorry. Can't wait. I don't know. I mean, obviously my answer is I don't know, but I think the way the public looks at the case enough, and there's enough of a spotlight and microscope on this town and these people right now that they're not going to do anything rash because it may look very obvious as to why. Are they allowed to ask who drove or who has a dark Ford Edge? I think that's already come out unless I'm confusing with the first trial. And they can't ask Lucky Laughlin if he doesn't have that knowledge. First day as a member, use the $500K discount to buy my future lawyer sweatshirt. Going back to school as a mama of 3. Thank you for being part of my motivation every day to keep grinding. Keep on keeping on, Caitlin. Peter, yesterday I noticed Judge Cannoni taking notes during Dr. Russell's testimony. Just curious, what would she be jotting down? Different judges take different notes on everything. Some take tons of notes on every witness. Some take a lot of notes when they know there's going to be issues later. And with Russell, we still have the rebuttal expert. We might have Mr. Wing. So maybe she's thinking like, what is Russell testifying to? What am I going to allow on rebuttal? Maybe it's for that reason. I don't know. Peter, will we see you again before court Friday? You just might, Knucklehead. You just might get a video tomorrow about Karen Reed. So make sure everybody's subscribed. Make sure you've hit that reminder bell. So if we post a video tomorrow, you don't miss it because you're going to want to be there. Speaking of people disagreeing with me about Dever, probably want to watch the video tomorrow. Hi P, why does B grind the witness of the defense about speaking prior to testimony? Makes it seem like it's shady. Stopped counting I'll allow it from Bev today. Yeah, that's part of his style, right? Some lawyers love to do that and think it makes people look shady. And every time he also says, I never spoke to you. Can we get a Brennan's cringiest moment of the day poll? Just kidding. Sadly, it's a poll that could not exist, or that could exist. 2 days with him. I'm sorry for your loss, but in response to his grieving his wife's death. Yeah, he doesn't have a gentle touch. Said blogger was in the press box today. How is that okay? I mean, there's no witness intimidation charges. There's no restraining order. There's nothing that keeps any blogger or journalist out of the courtroom when this witness is testifying, which how much credence are you going to put in to what Hank Brennan is saying and asking? Come on, Peter, the FBI is being kept out simply because it's prejudicial to the Commonwealth, not because it's confusing the jury. It would confuse the jury because they try to figure out why is the FBI involved. And they might not know why the FBI is involved, and that could confuse the jury. It's also prejudicial to the Commonwealth. I also understand why the FBI is kept out. I think the door has been opened, but I understand originally why she kept the FBI out. How do attorneys write effective closing arguments for a 1 hour slot in such a serious case? Is this case so far? What would you use? I can't go through everything I'd use, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult to pick and choose what you're going to keep in. I push and use every second and make her make me sit down. That's what I would do. And I would ask for more time on the record over and over and over again. I read the judge was an A+ public defender for years. Even more confused why she seems to favor the prosecution. Is this normal? It's normal for judges to favor the prosecution, even ones that were defense attorneys, but it seems like this background and situation is not normal. Can ARCA talk about the harassment now? Maybe. I don't know. But the judge has not allowed the person calling the witness to talk about the harassment about the witness up to this point. Prosecutors should strive for justice, not convictions. With that in mind, what do you personally think is driving Brennan's passion during cross? I think he believes it's the just result. I have to believe that. I have to believe he believes that Karen Reed is guilty and he is fighting for justice. I don't know how he does, and I don't agree with it, but I have to believe that's what he's thinking. What are your thoughts on the defense making the missing witness jury instruction motion for Proctor, Higgins, and Albert? I think it is the perfect case for that instruction, and I think that instruction should be allowed. I will try to talk more about that on tomorrow's video. Let me make a note so that we hit that. All right. Peter, favorite Celsius flavor. Thanks for all you put into these cases. Well, grape is one of my favorites. That's what I'm drinking right now. The problem with memorizing Celsius colors, flavors, they always have two. I like the ones with mango and guava. Those kind I like a lot. Okay, let's get back to listening some more of the cross.
On June 5th, 2023, you were contacted by the defense private investigator, weren't you? And you may not know the dates. Were you contacted twice by the private investigator?
I would need to know what time frame we're looking at.
Fair enough. By the way, the blogger that I speak of, do you know if he is friendly or supports one side over the other?
I know he is friendly towards one side, yes.
The side sitting in the back of the room?
I would say the defense team.
You've interacted.
I mean, if Lucky really wanted to push there, I would have said he believes Karen Reed is absolutely and factually innocent. That's probably what I would have said. But Hank Brandon opened the door to that. And Yannetti could have asked even more about it. There was a good question about. Here we go. Greg said, defense messed up doing a redirect. Lucky did well till recross. Hank pushed publicly and pressure, plus pick with the fan, take the win and get him off the stand. So we'll talk about recross. Maybe I don't think it was quite as bad as you thought it was, but I do agree with you. I probably would have passed on redirect here because I thought Lucky did such a good job on cross and it was ineffective mostly by Brennan on cross. I probably would have passed on redirect.
With a private investigator hired by the defense?
Yes.
Have you also interacted with any of the attorneys?
Yes.
Which attorneys have you interacted with?
Mr. Yannetti.
Have you contacted or have you spoken to any other attorneys other than Mr. Yannetti?
Just Mr. Yannetti.
How many times have you spoken to Mr. Yannetti?
Again, what are we talking? First trial?
I want to try to jump ahead to some of the time frame. And Medina. Yeah. And they can be like, did the lawyer tell you to say that? It's like, no, I learned that on YouTube.
I'll allow that.
Again, I don't feel like I was being targeted.
Are you concerned after this case what happens with the blogger that you follow?
No.
You talked about your meeting with the private investigator. The first time you met him, do you remember that meeting?
Yes.
Do you remember where you met him?
I met him at my place of employment.
Did you go anywhere with him that day?
No, I did not.
You had a conversation with him and you spoke about what you saw.
Yes.
Tried to be as precise and accurate as you could.
Yes.
And when you spoke to them, obviously, like anybody, you had in mind there could be serious consequences if they felt misled.
Yes.
You try to be.
He's using the same line of questioning with the feds that the defense uses, that you could be arrested and charged with perjury if you lie to them.
Honest with them.
Yes.
Provide them your best memory and good faith.
Yes.
And this was shortly before, well, actually, this was May 24th, 2023, correct?
Correct.
When you met, there was more than one person there from this agency?
I believe so.
Was there potentially two?
There was two.
And when you met with them, they asked you about when you began working that night.
Yes.
You told them 11:30 to midnight.
I never told them that.
And so as you sit here today, your memory is you did not tell those law enforcement agents that you began work at 11:30 to 12?
We had a 2:30 start time.
I understand, but I'm asking you.
I never told them. It was always.
And so he just stood his ground and was like, I didn't tell him that. Which, guess what? That's exactly what a lot of Commonwealth witnesses said. The report's wrong. I didn't say that. What Proctor put in there is not true. He decided to go with that method, and it's kind of apples to apples. I don't know if it makes him more or less credible or what the jury's going to think, but they've heard it before. So it wouldn't be the first time that somebody said I said something that's different than what was written down or recorded that somebody else said I said.
It's 2:30 start time.
When you spoke to them, do you remember telling them the first time you were out near the area was midnight?
Nope. No.
When you spoke to those law enforcement personnel, were they taking notes?
I believe so.
Have you ever seen their report?
The first trial I did, yes.
Who showed you that report?
It was shown to me by Prosecutor Lally.
You think Prosecutor Lally showed you that report?
It was shown to me.
And do you remember telling those two law enforcement personnel that you believe that there were emergency vehicles, ambulances, or police cars in front of Fairview at 3 to 3:30 a.m.?
I do not.
Are you saying that you did not say these things to them, or are you saying that that's not your memory?
That's not what I said.
And so you're saying that's wrong. You're denying
Correct.
you made those statements.
Correct.
At the time they say.
So we're going to listen to a little bit more of it, but I just want to show some of the clips of where he really tried to impeach him on the changing timeline, which I thought Lally did a decent job with last year and got more out of Lucky Laughlin than Brennan did. You can see this is clunky. It's not great. It's not clear. He's like, no, I didn't say that. And he sounds pretty confident. He's not pausing, shaking, nothing. But I did think Brennan did a pretty good job. So RJ said, when plowing and cautious, you see everything. And then Ken said, I'm not a plow driver, but a mailman, both monotonous jobs. You notice peculiar things, especially a vehicle blocking your path. So would you notice a body in the snow if there was snow covering it and it just looked like a white lump or black lump or whatever? Would you notice that? Would you notice a dumpster? Which I actually thought was a pretty decent point. I think Michael has been saying it like it's very possible he didn't see the body in the snow. And Brandon, I thought it was probably the best part of his cross where he's like, well, you saw everything from every yard. And Lucky Laughlin's like, yes. And he's like, well, which yard had a dumpster? And he's like, well, I don't know. Then on recross, he shows him the picture of the dumpster. And I thought that was pretty good to say, like, maybe he could have missed it. And I think maybe he could. I definitely don't think he's lying, right? I do not think he's brought across that Lucky Laughlin's lying. Could he have missed it? I think that's possible. Is that enough to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Because let's not get the burdens shifted. But I thought that was kind of a good line of questioning about the dumpster.
That you told them there was emergency vehicles there at 3 a.m. That is the same time that you told the PI that you saw the Ford Edge around 3:30 to 4, correct?
About 3:30 is when I saw the Ford Edge.
It was dark out that night, wasn't it?
Correct.
There are no street lights down near that flagpole area of 34 Fairview, is there?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Was it on that night?
I can't tell you honestly if it was.
You testified at trial? I'm sorry, at a proceeding last year?
I testified that there were, it was asked to me that there were not any streetlights. And I answered it in the affirmative way. And living in that neighborhood, I saw that there were actual streetlights.
You testified.
All right. Yeah. He says it was well lit. Let me see if there's anything else I want to talk about with this cross. Details of the car change. Was it an SUV? Did you always say it was an Edge? When you went to the parking lot, did the investigator tell you it was an Edge? Did you tell him it was an Edge? They kind of went back and forth on that. You told the agents 3:30, then a different person 5:30, today 6:15. He just kind of got into again how the times were changing. The video he shows him 6:19 looks like to him. He's not sure about 6:32, 6:37, 7:20. Could have been him. Could have been another plow driver who they also contracted with. He knows the Alberts. They talk about the first responder thing. Have you, since last year, have you felt any recent aggression towards you or problems, etc.? No. So to be clear, there are definitely issues with Lucky's timeline and potential inconsistencies, but he was always consistent that he didn't see a body. Whenever he drove by, he didn't see a body in the snow. And I think he battled appropriately on cross and did not become combative. I am going to run through some of these questions here before we get to redirect and then recross, which again, I thought was better than cross, still not amazing. Leighton Shaw. Hi, my mom, shout out Gigi, and I run a small business together and love watching you while we work. We'd love to send you plus your fam some goodies, organic herbal tea, botanicals, etc. as a thank you for all you do. Do you have a P.O. box? Also, thank you for saying my name correctly last week. Tragoslaw.com. You can send it to my office address. I would love it. And now you put the pressure on me. Hopefully I said it correctly again today, Leighton. But I'm not sure if I did. And thank you so much for the goodies. Peter, we need your take on the recent buffer zone changes. I don't know what they are, so I'd have to look at that. And Medina, P. Brennan is testifying. He was threatened, then asked, is Brennan trying to bring in the blogger for later? I don't know what he's trying to do. I think, number one, he's for sure trying to attack Lucky Laughlin's credibility and say, you're testifying this way because somebody that's favorable to the defense is pressuring you, just like the defense tried to pressure Dever. I think he's trying to build a theme with that, if I had to guess. Online blogger as opposed to an offline blogger. What's your thoughts on the defense making the missing witness jury instruction? Oh, I think I already did that one. I will be doing more of this in another video. As someone that didn't know anything about this case until this trial, I was totally lost with the blogger questions and had to Google. Yeah, exactly. Exhibit A here. I don't blame you. Hank trying for a mistrial with this cross? I don't think so. I don't think so. After watching the Commonwealth cross Barrows, in my opinion, Dever was good to see. After Brendan telling Barrows that his memory could be wrong, made me fully believe they told Dever to change her statement. Does this exact timeline really matter? We know that his shift doesn't start until after 2 and no body was there. The impeachment of those exact times doesn't change my opinion that he saw what he saw. So, pharmacist, this is what the jury's going to have to go back there and discuss. Will somebody point out this fact? Because I agree with you. I do see it this way as well. Do you think Brendan has a false memory of once having integrity? Ouch. People probably have said the same thing about me on Twitter, right? We all get these shots taken at us. How do you respond when a lawyer inserts information to trick a witness and giving a false testimony? Objection, fast on evidence. Objection, mischaracterization of the evidence. You should be able to make those arguments. But you really hope a witness knows the evidence enough. If a blogger is pressuring a witness, isn't that illegal? Yes. Peter, do you think the governor, Maura Healey of Massachusetts, former Massachusetts AG, is watching? Yes. I don't think she's watching me. I think she's watching this trial. Could she pardon before a verdict, after a verdict? Thank you for your channel. Yes, she could pardon after a verdict. I believe. I have to look at how Massachusetts law works, right? I don't want to make assumptions it's similar to Florida, so I'd have to look, but I think the answer would be yes. Wasn't the purpose of the zone to prevent jurors from feeling pressured by the public support? If so, why would she allow this intimidation stuff in? Your guess is as good as mine. I think there's about 100 reasons this much detail should not have been allowed in. Hi, Peter. If Karen Reed would be found not guilty, can the Commonwealth appeal the verdict? Greetings from the Netherlands. No. For the vast majority, unless like very, 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 very minor unforeseen circumstances and the least minority of cases, it may be possible, but generally speaking, no. What do you think would happen if I wore my opinion matters / future juror lawyer t-shirt for jury selection? I think they'd have some questions for you. What can opposing lawyers do when counsel questions the witnesses contain a lie? Still the best legal channel on YouTube. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Complex Lit. Objection, mischaracterization of evidence, facts not in evidence, argumentative question. You have to fight hard against that. Which motion did Bev deny at the end of the day? I believe it was the motion of reconsideration for Mike Easter, the FBI or the investigation expert. Maybe I'm slow, but I feel it's only at this point in the trial that I've realized that even generally in life, demeanor is a huge part of whether I see lies versus clumsy wording, faulty memory, etc. Young people are more susceptible to accepting potential corruption presentation of the Commonwealth's case. It's a good point. I feel like lawyers think about it a lot. How you present, how you talk, how you say yes can make a big difference, right? All right, let's get to that redirect now.
Truck actually catch?
It caught the net in the little bit part of the frame of the frame where the net was.
Something that you saw from the beginning, you just misjudged the distance.
Correct.
Now, finally.
So talking about hitting the basketball hoop, and that came out, and Brandon was like, because you didn't see it, right? You have trouble seeing it. You didn't see this, you didn't see that. It's because you just didn't see it. And so Yannetti wanted to clean that up on redirect.
With regard to the 5:30 testimony that you gave last year.
Yes.
Did you also testify that the last pass that you tried to make when the police were blocking the scene was about 3 hours after that 3:30 second up and down?
Yes.
So why is it last year that you testified that it was 3 hours later, but you came up with the time of 5:30 as the final time?
As he's asking me these questions, I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm sorry, math is not my strong suit.
What time?
It's a pretty good explanation to just a 30-minute difference, right? Which can obviously be a very big deal in a case like this. Seconds can be a big deal, so obviously 30 minutes can be a big deal. But he's saying I just did the math wrong. Will a jury buy that? By the way, not a ton left in this video, but we are at an hour. Always reminds me to hit that like button if you guys have not already, and make sure you're subscribed.
When was it when you made that final pass, sir?
6:15, 6:30.
I have nothing further.
He's sure. He's like 6:15, 6:30. It was a quick redirect, but now it did open up the opportunity for recross. And I think somebody probably handed Brendan these pictures like, hey, you can ask him about these now. Judge Cannoni's going to allow you. The door's been opened, whatever the question may be.
You mentioned you're trying to do the math in your head. There is no reason why you would specifically remember certain times on each pass other than trying to remember and give an accounting, right?
Could you rephrase that, please?
Sure. You don't have your watch out on a certain schedule that you have to pass a certain street at a certain time.
Correct.
You weren't marking your times to some event when you were driving up and down the street that night, were you?
No.
So you're trying to go back with your memory and piece it together the best you can.
Correct.
And that's why you're giving estimates, yes? And
Correct.
when you spoke to those law enforcement officials, not Canton, not state police, and you said at 3 o'clock you saw first responder vehicles, that was based on your memory, wasn't it? It was based on your memory.
Not at 3:30.
Right. Do you know that there was a car similar to a Ford Edge in front of 34 Fairview around 6 a.m. that morning?
I wasn't able to get in front of Fairview Drive, 34 Fairview, at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Have you ever met Kerry Roberts before?
I have not.
Counsel just asked you if there was a lot of media about this case, and you said that there was.
I-
Did he just ask you a question about whether there was a lot of attention on this case?
So he's trying to take that and he's going to blow that door wide open because there was a question about it on redirect, even though it was pretty limited. Truly Laws, 30-ish-year-old girl here felt Hank's quick dismissal of this man's loss was the grossest I felt about him all year. Couldn't take a breath between condolences and trying to discredit him. So I'll say two things about this. Seems like she might be in line with a lot of the age of the jurors here from what reports have said about their age. And we know it's split male and female, 9 of each. But I will also say it's a pretty difficult situation for a lawyer to be in. You can't take 5 minutes and really feel for somebody and give you their proper condolences when you've got a job to do. So balancing that is very difficult. And Hank Brennan moved so quickly and felt about as dismissive as you could, right? It's not an easy thing. So I don't want to say it's an easy thing on how to balance that, but I would agree he didn't do a great job.
Did he just talk to you about everything that happened after this case, all the attention on this case? Remember his question about all the attention after this case?
He asked specifically a question about the dumpsters.
And he said that wasn't subject to a lot of attention, was it?
Correct.
Right. But this case was.
The case itself, yes.
The people involved in this case were subject to a lot of attention.
Correct.
And you spoke to the defense investigator after this case, as far as attention is concerned. You remember speaking to the investigator on June 5th, 2023.
Yes.
And do you know, coincidentally, that is the day that the blogger put out the articles on you, accusing you of not doing the right thing?
That's interesting. Articles the same day he talked to the defense investigator. I think that's a pretty good point connection by Hank Brennan. Will it make the difference at the end of the day? Probably not, but I think that was a pretty good connection to make. Again, it happened on recross. He did not make this point on cross.
May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you a document. Let's take a look at that document. What day is that document dated?
June 5th, 2023.
Without reading it, that document talks about you.
Correct.
And your friends and people in the community talked to you about this article, didn't they?
Not specifically this article, but they were sending me stuff that were being printed about me, yes.
Why don't you take a little look at what's said and you can tell us whether that's the same type of information that was being conveyed to you through intermediaries.
And please,
Answer.
can you ask that question again, please?
Answer. Was this some of the kind of attention that you were receiving on June 5th after you spoke to the defense investigator?
Yes.
Like come sidebar?
So then there was a sidebar we are going to skip here. A very long sidebar. Talk about how much Hank Brennan was really going to be allowed to get into this.
Just a few more questions. Sorry, I have just a few more questions. When I had mentioned about meeting the defense investigator on June 5th, 2023, I misspoke. It was June 5th, 2024. Does that sound more like it?
Yes.
June 5th, 2024, was that before, shortly before you testified before?
Yes.
You were asked on redirect examination whether any dumpsters got any attention about this case. The question I was asking is, did you notice things that might have been open and obvious? And you have no memory of an actual dumpster in the area, correct?
Correct.
If I could have on the screen Exhibit 37, still photo from that clip.
So a lot of people saying they think the dumpster thing didn't hit, and Tin Cat said showing the dumpster undermined the point because it didn't appear out of place. Looks similar to a car in the driveway, not what he was scanning for. It's a pretty good point.
Sure.
And sir, do you notice the big red dumpster to the right side across from Fairview?
It's like one of those construction dumpster things. I mean, I think that it does look like a car, and he could have said that. And I didn't know which driveway every single car was in. So if the dumpster would have been on the yard, I would have seen it. I think he could have pushed back a little bit more, but I think Hank Brennan made a point here. I think he made a point. I don't think it was a significant one. We're kind of searching for what he did well on this cross because I think it was a struggle.
Yes.
Okay, you can take that down. Sir, when we started the break, I'd asked you some questions. I showed you a document, asked you if you were aware what was inside that document, and you mentioned that was around June 5th, 2023. That was before your last testimony in this case.
Yes.
And you knew that a person or persons were putting out private pictures of you online.
I did notice.
And those private pictures, you didn't give anybody permission or want that attention, did you?
I did not.
In fact, it wasn't just some private pictures. It was pictures taken from
And again, I would be like, Judge, I already objected to this and it's inappropriate. We did this on cross. Why is he allowed to do this again on recross? It seems kind of crazy to me that he was allowed to get into this again.
for different times in your life, correct?
Yes.
You never gave anybody permission to do that.
I did not.
You didn't want people talking about you or asking you questions. That was none of their business, did you?
I did not.
And it was embarrassing that you were being made this public spectacle when you had done nothing wrong, correct?
Ask it differently.
Was it embarrassing what they were doing to you?
I wouldn't say embarrassing, as more as aggravating.
In fact, they were calling your boss. Yes?
I'm going to allow that.
Yes.
And you mentioned how hard you work.
Yes.
Plow, you even.
I mean, that does look like somebody's trying to force you to say something, right? Calling your boss, not just writing blogs. Writing blogs is one thing. Calling your boss, doing stuff to you in your personal life and private life. I mean, there's some smoke there Brennan is trying to create for this jury to see. This witness's demeanor, the way he testified, did not come across. Like, if I would have found that out about Dever, that somebody was threatening her and in the background calling her boss. Now, I know she went and talked to the commissioner. That's what the defense was setting up. But I actually thought Brennan set it up with what was happening on recross here as even more. The problem is the way he testified versus the way somebody like Dever testified is his testimony did not seem forced. It did not seem like he was saying something he did not want to say or saying something he did not believe.
So there are peaches to 8 years.
Yes.
Zamboni, anytime you can work, you try hard, don't you?
I do.
And when someone's calling your boss, giving undue attention to you, I think that creates some concern that could affect your livelihood.
I did not think it was going to affect me in that manner.
In addition to dragging you into this, because of you, your brother was dragged into this, wasn't he?
Ask it differently.
When you were getting this information about what was happening, you learned that they were also dragging your brother into this because of you, correct?
I'll sustain that.
Did you learn that information was coming out about your brother?
I knew my brother was dealing with other issues regarding this case.
And certainly,
It's a really good answer, right? Because he didn't say yes. And that leaves open to a lot of interpretation. It could be a lot of different things. A really good answer.
you're close with your brother.
Yes.
You care for your brother.
Yes.
You did not want to upset anybody and have more attention brought onto your brother, did you?
I did not.
And there was an attempt to link your brother to one of the others, in fact, correct?
Yes.
As well as you.
I don't know if I was being linked.
Did you know the information of trying to so-called out you about the fact that you worked for Chris Albert?
I'm going to sustain that the way it's phrased.
Were you aware when your friends and family were telling you about what was going on, about an attempt to draw a relationship between you and the Alberts?
No.
And Were you aware when people were telling you what was happening, that there was attacks on you personally, like finances and things like that?
Yes, I was aware of that.
And certainly, that is pretty discouraging when that is happening and you've done nothing wrong, isn't it?
It was, again, aggravating.
And this was all happening before you came in and testified last time I tried.
Correct.
After you testified, things got better.
I wouldn't say better. It's gotten a little more easily manageable.
You were no longer being harassed, you were being embraced.
Correct.
May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you a photograph, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is this
Is
true
that
that the
part-
article was in 2023, not 2024? Oh, is that what he came in corrected on recross? Did I hear this? I can't remember. I might be confused with this, confusing the dates. Did Brennan come and correct this? I'm not positive.
Part of the embracing process after you testified a certain way in the last trial?
It was after I testified, yes.
With redactions, and we'll introduce a select portion of this.
So I need to see what that is. Can you decide on, make this very brief, please?
We're going to skip another sidebar here.
Madam Clerk, Madam Court Reporter, please.
And I just showed you a photograph. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of you after your last testimony,
Yes.
reflecting you now being embraced rather than attacked?
Yes.
Could we show the photo, please, Ms. Gilman, with the court's permission?
Yes.
And that's you, Mr. Laughlin?
Yes.
You can take that down, please. Thank you for your time.
Just very briefly, sir, if I might, Your Honor.
Sure.
So that was the end of recross. Now we're going to have a redirect.
Mr. Laughlin, I should say. The questioning about the attention that you received in 2023 when you received secondhand the information from the blogger, was that before or long after you were interviewed and gave a statement to the defense investigator in February of 2022?
It was long after.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lock.
Long after. Tarek said, Michelle Franco, will you marry me? And then I think he commented again and said, Peter, my girl loves your show and is watching now. Michelle Franco, will you marry me? Can you ask her live on your show? This would be a first if it's real, Derek. Michelle, hopefully Derek's a great guy and you say yes. Couldn't it be anti-Karen Reed people calling Lucky? It could. It could, but I don't think that's what's being insinuated here. I get pretty riled up about it, but I have to acknowledge HB's tact, introducing tangential arguments through his cross, especially when he knows Cannoni is apt to allow it. I think Hank Brennan often either misstated or misrepresented testimony when asking things. Objections weren't sustained. Is that potential material for appeal? Potentially it could be. Could you briefly give the pros and cons for the defense calling Higgins Proctor and Brian Albert? So me and I think Betterow talked about this, and me and my dad have talked about this on the podcast last week and the last video I did with Betterow. If you want to check that out for more detail, I would definitely call Proctor because you can get into the text. All the bad things he did is termination, and he really can't hurt you because he doesn't have much good to say without it being repetitious from what Yuri Buchanan said. The others are more difficult because I do think they would have more new and good information for the Commonwealth. But of course, with Higgins destroying your phone at the phone base and your the SIM card and all of that, the butt dials, you can get a lot of that in, I think would be good. So there are some pros and cons for sure. Can the defense ask ARCA, were you obtained by a law enforcement agency pertaining to this case, not MSP, not Canton? It didn't quite come out like that the first trial. We'll see if Judge Cannoni allows more detail this trial. With witnesses, I ask, what does this person have to gain or lose by testifying? Is it wrong of me to think Barros and Lucky carry more weight. No, that is something you're allowed to assess as a juror when you're assessing the credibility of a witness. This is literally the type of stuff that's in jury instructions. Theory: Proctor didn't stop reading the text between Karen and Yannetti, and she admitted guilt. Could explain why they kept pushing so hard about despite the evidence. Nietzsche, absolutely could be true. Or she said something that would indicate to them that she's guilty. Don't most witnesses speak with attorneys before trial? Absolutely, Michelle. And the witnesses that make it seem nefarious, to me, I want to just kind of hit them over the head. It's like, dude, you talk to your witnesses too. If not, you're not doing your job. Would seem like a death blow for their case, adding to the evidence of corruption and blindness. It's sad. And thank you so much, Peter. Been a huge fan from literally the start. Only came out of my shell really a few months ago. Well, welcome, Idiot Wind. Glad you're here. Out of the shell, blossoming with your butterfly wings. Are witnesses told in advance not to say the FBI? They should be instructed not to say things that are inadmissible and that the judge has ordered that are not allowed to come out at trial. Off topic, if the Commonwealth impact theory was on point, Dr. W could have put a helmet on, arm pads, let the Lexus at 20 plus miles away and walk away just fine. I mean, nobody really expects him to do that. He should have used a crash dummy, in my opinion. Peter, I know you said the chat gave you grief the other day. I wanted to let you know EDB also said a couple days ago that Brennan and Jackson had similar styles, strength, and numbers. Listen, if you haven't picked up on this by now, lawyers are going to disagree. Whether it's me and Emily, whether it's me and any other lawyer on YouTube, Twitter, or in the world, or lawyers that you may know, or lawyers in my firm or my dad. It's going to happen. It's okay. We know how to do it. It doesn't bother me. I'm not going to say they're an idiot. I'm not going to say they have no clue what they're doing or that they're unethical if they disagree with me on something. Lawyers are going to see things differently. Every lawyer goes into an argument before a judge. Two lawyers see things differently, and the judge tells one of them you're right, one of them you're wrong. You win, you lose. So it really doesn't bother me if Emily disagreed with me. I think it's cool that she saw it the same way with me. I love agreeing with the lawyers that I respect like her. If I recall from the last trial, the Ford Edge belonged to Chris Albert, Brian Albert's brother. Do you recall that? I couldn't remember if it was Chris or Kevin. It was definitely an Albert that had the Ford Edge. I don't remember if it came out this trial or not. The way Brennan is questioning on cross, it seems like he's entering in his own testimony. I agree sometimes as evidence. He should have proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and he wouldn't have to grasp at straws. Can lawyers call out other lawyers for lying in front of the jury? Defense should have pointed out Brennan lied when he said the dumpster was in the front yard. It was in the driveway up the house. But the point is, did you see it? He didn't see it. Mischaracterizing evidence, lawyers do it all the time. It's really annoying. That is a proper objection, and a good judge should really parse that out and not allow it. Why would Jen McCabe be looking out the window multiple times and texting J.O. instead of Karen Reed while waiting for them? Feels like a rhetorical question. Have you any opinion on the rumors that Brian Higgins being in rehab and flipping to the feds, why he's not been called by either side of trial because he's taking a plea? I honestly have no idea. It's hard for me to comment on something like that. The fact that Karen Reed had a PI within 2 weeks, I would look at that as favorably, and I think it supports her innocence. How do you think the jury looks at it? Well, you're going to hate my answer, but I could just see the jury seeing it either way. I could see some jurors that maybe think she's innocent and look at it the way you do. Some jurors that might think she's guilty and are like, only guilty people will get PI to go out there and change people's testimony. I've heard jurors say both things. That's why I'm putting it that way. Was Hank Brennan right? Was Kerry Roberts' car a Ford Edge? I was like, whoa, when he said that. Never heard that before. Did he say that? Did he say Kerry Roberts' car was a Ford Edge? Was she there at 3 o'clock in the morning? I'm sorry if you covered this before, but I'm confused about why the defense wouldn't call Proctor. Seeing him, hearing him read, it would be compelling, not guilty. I agree with you. I would call him. There are reasons not to. You can give this missing witness instruction. They don't want to give him a chance to explain himself. Maybe there's a 1% chance the jury feels bad for him, likes him on the stand, and therefore he's not the boogeyman bad guy anymore. Peter, what score out of 10 would you give Brennan in his case as a lawyer? There are parts I feel like he's been a 9.5 out of 10. Done a great job. There are points where I feel like he's been a 1 out of 10. So it's tough to just say how he's been overall because certain points I've tried to give specifically how I think every lawyer has done at each thing they've done from my perspective, which they don't really care about. But the difference in memorability between a dumpster and a dead body is vast. Why not touch on this on redirect? He tried to. It didn't really come out as clean as you've said it here. Point is, defense and witnesses simply have to make the jurors consider alternate possibility. I agree. People need to understand reasonable doubt is their only burden. Yeah, and it's not even a burden, but sometimes the more evidence you put on, the more a jury might think you actually have a burden of proof. The downside to watching live is not being able to fast forward past Brennan. Hi, Peter. Did you hear the rumor that Higgins is in rehab and has flipped to the FBI, which is why no side is calling him? I have not heard that rumor outside of you telling me it. If I do see it, I'll look into it. If it has any corroboration, I'll look into it. I just really don't like commenting on things like that I don't know. The article he showed him doesn't come in. It was from Turtle Boy. Sure. It was favorable to Karen Reed since Brennan introduced. Can the defense not get it into evidence? It would be a collateral issue. It's used as a demonstrative aid. It could potentially come in as evidence. I don't remember if it did or not. Could the defense enter it? Potentially, if they wanted to, I guess, since the Commonwealth brought it up and showed it to him. Turtle Boy helped Lucky. He was told if anyone talked about the case, they would be fired. Turtle Boy questioned Lucky's boss about it and drew light to protect his job. Who's doing the intimidation here? Yeah, I mean, if that's true, that would definitely add more context. It definitely didn't sound like that. I didn't know that. Cecilia, I think Lucky was steadfast and believable. Brendan made me like him even more. Question, is seeing a dumpster on the side of the road unusual? Is seeing a car in front of a home where you never see a car unusual? Which is more memorable? I agree. I get it. For those in the chat, our site is Herbal, URBLL, pronounced Herbal. Hope this is okay, Peter. If not, feel free to not show this. Thanks to everyone. Can't wait to send you some goodies. No beef with that. No beef. Thank you. Beautiful disaster. Do you think Brendan bringing up the harassment to get it in for Turtle Boy case as far as proof this happened and therefore Turtle Boy is guilty based on info? I don't think this is going to affect the Turtle Boy case. And frankly, Laughlin said he did not feel like he was threatened or harassed by Turtle Boy. So if anything, it's good evidence for Turtle Boy. That's why lies are so dangerous. Once you hear the lie, you may not hear the correction on the record. A lie uncorrected becomes the truth. I think that's a quote from Hank Brennan. Last half of Cross felt like the Turtle Boy trial, not the Karen Reed trial. Very confusing if you don't know who he is. I agree. I absolutely agree with you. Jury duty the end of June. It's Merck trial. Advice. Be honest. If you have some kind of bias against the person, if you feel like there's some connection to you where you can't be fair and impartial, tell the lawyers. Be honest with the lawyers. If you want to do it, though, tell them, listen, I can be fair and impartial. I realize that person is presumed innocent and the burden is over there and they have to prove this case and they get to go first and last. I understand how it works and I'm willing to weigh the evidence. Hopefully they pick you. John O'Keefe, Chris, and Julie Albert all followed Turtle Boy. Ooh, that's interesting. Would Proctor be able to testify to interviews he conducted, or would that be hearsay? He can testify to the investigation he did, which includes the interviews, but Yuri Buchanan has already testified about all that stuff. So what's the fear of that coming in? I don't see it. All right, let's get to Ms. Kolakithis. She's a pharmacist. Nick is her husband. They have 2 kids, 19 and 17. She was at the waterfall. They know these people all from sports. She knew the McCabe. They introduced him to the Alberts. She really liked Karen Reed, which I thought was interesting. And I thought Hank Brennan might bring that up as bias. Oh, you really like Karen Reed. You want to help her out, which, again, he tried to do with Lucky and some of the other witnesses. She spoke to Karen Reed the whole night. Karen Reed did not seem drunk. She basically seemed fine. John O'Keefe kissed Karen Reed on the forehead. They played the video, and they were basically like, oh, look at how loving they are. She ID'd the waterfall video, some people in it. He tried to get her to say, like, yeah, they're pointing over there. They're messing around. This is that person, that person. Nicole said, bar video perspective, Higgins was drunk and insecure and kept looking at JOK. JOK was mocking them and acted too cool for school, ignited Higgins' insecurities. I think he also got Kolakithis to say Higgins saw the kiss on the forehead. Maybe that incited a problem. I don't know. Let's play a little clip from her testimony. Some of the more important stuff. There wasn't a ton here, but what I'll say, she was very likable. She only said good things for the defense. And I understand why they called her. And these are the types of witness where it's like, do they need to call her? Maybe, maybe not, but I understand why they did. They did call her. Are they going to call her husband? I don't know. Let's take a listen to this part of the.
When you can turn the lights back on. When you were leaving the establishment, whom did you leave with?
So again, it was myself, Jennifer McCabe, and Karen.
Did anything unusual occur when you were leaving?
So as we were leaving, Jen went over to Karen, kind of put her arm around her, and she started saying, "You're coming with me, you're coming with me." And Karen's like, "Huh? Like what? Like where are we going?" And
I'm going to sustain the objection.
She sustains the objection. She did not strike the comment. So that put her arm around her, you're coming with me, is in evidence. Lori, Peter, do you think Karen will testify? Absolutely not. I do not think she's going to testify.
Part of that answer, the putting her arm around her, you're coming with me. Why did that stand out in your memory?
Just because I was there too, and it just was strange. It was just like, you're coming with me. Like it was just something that stood out to me.
You weren't included.
I mean, no, it's fine. I mean, it was just stood out.
I guess that question was kind of weird. Like, are they going to say like, oh, she's a scorned friend. She was just mad she wasn't included. That's why she's trying to testify to hurt Jen McCabe or something. But I don't think it really came off as that. That's just kind of what popped into my head when I heard it. It's kind of a weird question by Yannetti. I don't know why he asked that one because I think she got the point across that McCabe was like, hey, you're coming with me.
Oh, you know, yeah.
Did Karen go with Jen McCabe?
No, she did not.
What did you see her do?
So then out of the clear blue, thinking that Karen was going to go with Jen, I see Karen with John.
And where did you see Karen with John?
I saw them just I was parked across Washington Street, across from the restaurant, and I just saw Karen and John like walking down towards what used to be Amber Road, a place.
It used to be Amber Road?
It used to be Amber Road, yeah.
Is that a Amber Road cafe?
Correct. It was like a restaurant. It was like a little cafe shop.
And did you figure out why they were walking in that direction?
That's where I think Karen had parked her car.
Did you have any concerns about Karen being able to drive that night?
I had talked to her all night, and I did not notice anything strange about her. Like, I didn't think anything of it.
And once you parted ways, where did you go?
I went in my car.
And what was your last?
So that was the end basically of direct. And I'm going to answer a couple questions and then we're going to hear this hard hitting cross. But first, Michelle, hypothetical, if Jen McCabe had told Karina directly that the collision was caught on the ring camera, can Karina testify to this or is it hearsay? So could be considered hearsay. I would say that it is not hearsay because it's not used for the truth that the ring camera actually did pick up Karen hitting or the collision, because we know that that's not true or that it doesn't exist, or at least doesn't exist now. So what it would be is it would go to Jen McCabe's state of mind that she was trying to, and Jen McCabe's bias that she was trying to either trick Karina or get her on her side or lie to her. And it would go to Karina about what she's thinking. Who's telling the truth? I'm hearing this. How do I weigh this? So the effect on her. I would argue it should be able to come in if that is true and that she did say it to her. I don't know if they did. Pita, in the event of conviction, what do you consider the appealable issues most likely to succeed? I'm dying to hear from a smart attorney. Well, I think this whole Turtle Boy thing is a big issue. I think some of the judge's rulings on the investigation expert, I think her ruling on not allowing them to cross on Trooper Paul, but allowing them to cross on some of the other reports from some of the other witnesses that they were able to do with Dr. Russell. The difference there is an issue. There's so many issues. After the trial, we usually do a deep dive looking into this. I'll probably cover this issue solely on a podcast with my dad after the trial's over and we have all the information. Hold on, I'm going to save that. Peter, I spent childhood summers visiting my great-grandparents in Tally. Hearing you talk about the area brings back good memories. Love your show. I love Tally. Hi, Peter. My dad and I got into a debate on if the defense had to put on a defense, as well as the fact that the lawyers lie. Sorry. What are your thoughts on his position? The defense does not have to put on a defense ever. I think if you have it, you flaunt it, right? If you got it, flaunt it when you're the defense. And yes, lawyers lie. Not all of them, but sometimes, yes, they do. You know what's not cool? Remembering seeing John O'Keefe's body to remembering a dumpster fire. Why is not allowing witnesses to testify about the FBA not considered concealing factual evidence? Wouldn't that be violation of our rights? There are all sorts of evidence that is concealed, that is factual in trials because of the rules of evidence, because it's either not reliable enough or there are other reasons it's not probative. There are other reasons it's not coming in. So just saying that it's factual doesn't make it concealing something. It doesn't mean it's going to come in. Okay, appeal after 6 in the oral argument, Justice SS after big pause reaching for judicial language in her explanation of course says, your passion for this case, BK, relentless and determined effort, OTED should return to Shell. Not sure exactly what this is getting at. I apologize. Okay, let's listen to this hard-hitting cross by Hank Brennan to end the day.
Okay. Right.
Was rocking to the drive. Karen and John, both of them walking to the car, and Karen walking to the driver's side door of that car.
Correct.
That night, it was a celebratory mood.
Correct.
Everybody was getting along fine.
Yes, we were. Yes.
You were speaking to the defendant for some time.
Most of the time. Correct.
You saw her at points hugging Jen McCabe.
Correct.
You knew John.
I did.
He was a kind man.
Very kind.
Generous.
Very generous.
Thoughtful.
Very thoughtful.
Soft-spoken.
Yes.
That night was particularly different. He was extraordinarily proud and happy, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And you could see him emote about his accomplishment that his daughter got into private school.
Correct.
Did you talk to John that night?
I did.
No further questions. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Kolakithis.
She even looked a little surprised. Like, that's it. He's done. That's the entire cross. So while she wasn't an earth-shattering witness, she did absolutely zero to hurt the defense. And she got out. Karen wasn't drunk. She was fine to drive. They were in a lovey-dovey mood. And Jen McCabe was holding on to Karen, trying to get her to come with her. So a couple good breadcrumbs for the defense to use and literally no damage done to them. Ashley, you always ask questions like this that I got to rack my brain over 27 days of trial, so I'm not going to be able to give you a good answer as if I could have prepared. The most surprising thing for me so far in this trial, I can't. It's like impossible for me to rack and try to. The most surprising thing for me this week was how strong Barros's testimony was versus last trial. That was pretty surprising to me. I did not remember it being a haymaker like it felt like this trial. Peter, the judge lets Brennan stand over the witness, intimidating in witness box, yet she tells Alessi to step back. Does jury notice appealable? I don't think that is what it is. I haven't watched it as much because I listen a lot more than I watch, but Alessi's gone up there. Brennan's gone up there. I think she's probably been pretty even-handed, but I'm not positive, so I can't say, and no, I don't think that'd be an appellate issue. Does the jury notice? I don't know. Can the jury draw any inference from either side not calling obvious witnesses other than the defendants? Yes, absolutely. But there are certain rules what you're allowed to argue as a lawyer about one side not calling versus the other side. If you have equal opportunity, if they're favorable and friendly to both sides. So the rules are a little bit tricky when it comes to that. Okay, so before we go, we are done with court, but I did want to play a little snippet Ashley sent me of an interview with Karen Reed outside the courthouse. That's going to give us a little indication as to exactly where we are in the presentation of this case and what is next. It's not the best audio, so bear with me.
The relationship with John, what more can you share?
I think the video speaks for itself. Happy, loving, affectionate, attention.
Do you think John and Brian Higgins were at odds? We see this angle of them looking at each other.
That way.
She said it appears that way, that Brian Higgins and John were at odds.
Do you pick up on that though? I mean, you were with John all the night. Were they fighting? Did it seem like they were at each other's throats?
I was not paying attention, as you can see, if you watch the full length of the waterfall between the two trials. I was
She said, I wasn't really paying attention on whether or not they were fighting, etc.
pretty much in that spot with Karina. Where they're
First time I've ever seen her say, I was just sitting there talking to Karina. So now we know Karina and Karen Reed were basically hanging out all night as buddies, which I thought was interesting and maybe adds a little bit as to why they're such good witnesses for them, but also kind of crazy. The Commonwealth called them trial number 1, right?
there about 90 minutes.
So you didn't
in
notice
the same
that?
spot. I didn't pick up on it.
Have there been
Are
any
you
sort of
friendly with Karina? I have not seen Karina in person since last trial.
Are you happy tomorrow's off, or would you rather just
I-
go through?
I'm happy.
Doesn't sound like they're still close, which should add to Karina's credibility.
We need to
How do you feel about
get
the
work
defense's
done.
case?
When do you think
How do
you'll
feel
wrap?
about the defense?
very, very well, solid.
When do you think you'll wrap?
Tuesday, give or take. Tuesday.
Tuesday is when she thinks they're going to wrap. So no court tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. So 3 more days of testimony. Who are they going to call? I really don't think it's going to be Karen Reed. We know there's 2 ARCA witnesses. Are they going to call Green or some kind of tech expert about the 2:27 a.m. search? Are they going to call Wing, the other dog expert? I mean, Proctor, Higgins, Albert, are they going to call any of them? Are they going to call Mr. Kolakithis? Who are they going to call? I don't know, but only 3 days left, which I think is less than a week and a half. They said it was going to go a full week and a half. I don't think that's a full week and a half if they finish Tuesday, right? That's almost like a week with like the half days and days we've missed. So did they trim their witness list? Were they planning on calling Proctor and now they're not going to call him? I would think ARCA's got to be at least a day, maybe 2. So who are the other witnesses they're going to call? Some people have been reporting on Twitter, like who's up next and things like that. So we'll keep an eye on it, see if we can find out any more information. But I found that interesting. I had a couple more seconds. Let's see if she says anything else.
Thank you.
You look.
All right. That was it. Is it common for closings to be limited to an hour? No, definitely not. Like I get more than an hour on a 1-week trial, right? I can ask for 90 minutes. I usually don't take it all, but you can, it's crazy that they're only giving an hour here. Nick, why is the Ford being dismissed? My mind is blown. I mean, I'm not dismissing it. I think it's a big deal. Why would they park a Ford there at that time? And why is nobody admitting or letting anybody know on the jury that the Ford was there? I think it's pretty wild. Will the defense get to show full context of her videos? If they want to. I don't know if they do. Maybe they think it wasn't that big of a deal. They kind of made the question or the point to the jury that it was out of context. Maybe that's better to just say those are all taken out of context and then take the time to try to put them in context. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I would think they probably have a plan, but we'll see. By the way, I'm wondering, will Judge Cannoni allow it? But could they put parts of the live stream from the trial, clips from what the witnesses said in during their closing? I would like to do that if I was them. Snip it and put in there. What did Barrow say? What did Dever say? What did Russell say? What did Welcher say? What did Burgess say? I think that would be very effective to the visual learners and the audible learners, right? And I think it'd be pretty captivating as a closing. Okay, that's all I got. You will see me tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you've hit that reminder bell. We have a Karen Reed video dropping tomorrow. I'm also going to try to watch Lori Vallow's opening statement in her second case, which the jury's being picked right now. She's sick and doesn't want to be there. The judge is forcing her to be there, basically. It's pretty wild. Why would that be allowed? So, whoops. The chat's moving, huh? How about the wedding proposal? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that ended. You guys will have to let us know how that ended. But why would that be allowed? It's testimony. You're allowed to read transcripts if you have real-time transcripts. You're allowed to summarize testimony if you're a lawyer and put it up on a PowerPoint presentation in a lot of courtrooms. So why not the live stream, right? It's coming from a court stream, but will the judge allow it? Will they not? It all depends on the judge. But I would push for it. All right. That's all we got. Till next time, I am out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.